Billionaire biker and son see a broke mom and kid at a pizza shop. Then he does something wild. The biker, whose name was Jack, had a reputation that preceded him wherever he went. People often assumed that because he was wealthy, he lived a life filled with luxury, exclusive events, and formal meetings. But in reality, Jack had always preferred simplicity. The roar of a motorcycle, the open road, and the quiet moments with his son meant more to him than the glitter of fame or piles of money. On this particular day, Jack had been riding along the countryside with his son, Ethan. The scenery was peaceful, with stretches of green fields, tall trees swaying in the wind, and a few small towns dotting the road. Ethan, sitting comfortably on the back of his father's bike, held tightly to the seat as he admired the world passing by. He was 12 years old, curious, thoughtful, and always observant. While he loved adventure, he also had a natural sense of empathy and often noticed things that adults might overlook. After a few hours of riding, they began to feel hungry. Jack had promised Ethan that they would stop somewhere interesting to eat, somewhere simple, not fancy restaurants that might feel intimidating. Soon, they spotted a small, modest pizza shop tucked away at a corner of a busy street. The wooden sign read Mario's Pizza in bold, cheerful letters, and the smell of freshly baked bread and melting cheese drifted into the air. Jack smiled at Ethan. "This looks perfect," he said. "Let's try it out." They parked the bike outside, and Ethan's eyes sparkled with excitement. Pizza was one of his favorite foods, and this small shop seemed cozy and welcoming. As they entered, the bell above the door jingled softly, and the warmth of the shop immediately wrapped around them. The interior was simple but clean, with a few tables scattered across the floor. There were colorful pictures of different pizzas on the walls, and the faint smell of tomato sauce mixed with baked dough filled the air. Jack and Ethan walked to an empty table near the middle of the shop. While Ethan examined the menu with enthusiasm, Jack's attention was drawn to a small corner where a mother and her young child sat. The woman seemed tired. Her hair was slightly messy, her clothes simple, and her expression showed quiet worry. She was counting coins on the table, a small pile of change that must have represented her entire budget for lunch. Beside her, the little boy, who could not have been more than 6 or 7, watched the menu with a mixture of hope and restraint. He did not ask for much, probably aware that his mother could not afford to buy more than a little for him. Ethan, noticing them, whispered to his father, "Dad, look at them. They don't have much money, do they?" Jack nodded slightly, his eyes softening. He didn't want to embarrass the mother by staring, so he looked down at the menu but kept observing quietly. He could sense the tension in the small family, the way the mother's hands trembled slightly as she counted the coins, and the way the boy tried to appear patient and cheerful, even though he must have been hungry. Ethan continued, "Why don't they just get a pizza like we're going to?" Jack took a deep breath. He knew that explaining the complexities of life to a child could be difficult, but he also believed in teaching empathy through observation. "Sometimes, Ethan," he said softly, "people don't have enough money to buy the things they want, but that doesn't mean they don't deserve good things or that they shouldn't enjoy simple pleasures when they can." Ethan nodded slowly. His young mind was absorbing every detail. He watched how the mother gently placed a small slice of pizza on a plate for her child, trying to make it look like a normal lunch. The boy pretended to be full, taking tiny bites and smiling as best as he could. Jack could see the child's eyes lighting up when he tasted the pizza, even if it was only a small piece. That moment, innocent and fleeting, was enough to show Ethan the power of little joys in life. Jack himself felt a deep sense of reflection. He remembered times from his early life before he became wealthy, when small gestures of kindness had changed his days. He recalled standing in lines for simple meals, waiting for opportunities, and hoping that someone would show care. He thought about how much he had achieved, but also how fleeting wealth could feel without purpose or compassion. The pizza shop was not busy at that hour. A few locals sat chatting at tables, enjoying their lunch, but nobody paid much attention to the mother and child. Jack, however, did. He noticed the subtle details, the way the mother's hand shook slightly as she handed the coins to the cashier, the small sigh of relief when the boy took a bite, and the quiet hope in her eyes that maybe today would be just a little easier than yesterday. Ethan leaned closer to his father. "Dad, can we help them?" he asked in a whisper, almost afraid to speak too loudly. Jack hesitated. He wanted to teach his son that help could be given in thoughtful ways, not just impulsively. He also wanted to show that observing, understanding, and planning could sometimes make an even bigger difference. "Let's wait a little," he said. "Sometimes it's better to watch and understand first before acting." Ethan frowned slightly, not fully understanding, but he trusted his father. He went back to looking at the menu, but his attention kept drifting to the mother and child. He noticed how carefully the mother divided the pizza slice, trying to make it last, and how the boy's eyes grew wide with excitement despite knowing it was only a small treat. Jack smiled at his son's sensitivity. He realized that this moment, this simple scene at a small pizza shop, was already teaching Ethan something more important than any expensive gift or lesson he could provide. He saw compassion developing in his son, and that filled him with pride. As they waited for their own pizza, Jack allowed his thoughts to wander. He wondered how many people went through life unnoticed, quietly struggling, and how little acts of kindness could change someone's day. He thought about the future, about how wealth could be used not just for comfort but for impact. And he thought about the responsibility of teaching Ethan not just to ride fast and work hard, but to notice, care, and act with heart. Time passed slowly in the small shop. The mother finished counting her coins and placed them gently in the cashier's hand. She gave a quiet nod, trying not to appear embarrassed. Her son sat patiently, pretending to read a comic book he had brought from home. Jack noticed how the boy occasionally peeked at their table, watching Ethan with curiosity and a little envy, though never complaining. Ethan whispered again, "Dad, look at his face. He really wants more pizza, doesn't he?" Jack glanced at the child. "Yes," he said quietly. "But see how he doesn't complain. That's courage, Ethan. Sometimes being brave means waiting and hoping quietly, even when things are hard." Ethan nodded, absorbing every word. "I don't like that they're sad," he admitted. Jack reached out and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "I know, son. That's why we notice. That's why we care. And sometimes we get the chance to make a difference." As the smell of their own pizza filled the air, Jack watched the mother and child with a growing sense of purpose. He realized that wealth was not just about money. It was about having the ability to create joy where it was needed most. And in that quiet pizza shop, surrounded by the aroma of baked dough and melted cheese, he felt a spark of an idea forming, one that could turn an ordinary afternoon into something extraordinary. Ethan, sitting beside him, was already imagining the possibilities. He watched the mother's careful movements, the child's small gestures, and his young mind filled with questions about fairness, kindness, and how one person could truly help another. Jack smiled inwardly, knowing that this would be a lesson neither of them would forget. For now, they sat, waited, and observed. They didn't yet know what would happen next, but the seeds of something meaningful had already been planted. A quiet afternoon in a small pizza shop was slowly turning into a story of connection, empathy, and the beginning of an act that could change lives forever. And so, the stage was set. The mother and child, unaware of the attention they had drawn, continued their quiet struggle. Jack and Ethan, silent observers at first, were preparing to step into a moment that would soon blur the lines between ordinary and extraordinary. The aroma of pizza, the warmth of the sun outside, the soft chatter of the shop, all of it combined to create a perfect scene for something unforgettable. And neither Jack nor Ethan would ever forget this afternoon, because sometimes life's most powerful lessons come not from grand events, but from small, unexpected encounters that touch the heart in ways words cannot fully capture. After a few minutes, the mother carefully handed her small pile of coins to the cashier. She was quiet, almost whispering a polite thank you as the coins changed hands. The cashier gave her a small slice of pizza in return, a gesture that felt almost too small for the hunger in the room. The mother returned to the table, and her young son's eyes brightened, though he still tried to hide his excitement. He picked up the tiny slice with both hands, as if it were the most precious thing in the world, and took tiny bites, savoring each one. Jack and his son Ethan observed quietly from their table. Ethan's eyes widened at the scene, and he whispered to his father, "Dad, they're so hungry and that's all they can get." Jack nodded solemnly. "Yes, son. Sometimes people have very little, and even a small thing can feel like a big treasure to them." Ethan leaned forward, curiosity and empathy written across his young face. He wanted to do something immediately, to help in some way, but Jack put a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Patience, Ethan. Sometimes it's better to understand someone's situation fully before stepping in. Watching and listening carefully can help us know the best way to help." Ethan frowned slightly, unsure what that meant. But he trusted his father and went back to watching the mother and child. He noticed how carefully the mother divided her small slice, giving her son just enough while keeping a tiny piece for herself. The boy, aware of his mother's struggle, smiled and said, "I'm full, Mom," even though he still wanted to eat more. It was a small act of courage, a way to ease her worry. Jack thought about his own past, remembering times when he had been young and hungry. He recalled the sense of shame and pride that came from trying to manage with nothing, and how even small kindnesses from strangers had changed his day. Seeing the mother and her son reminded him of those moments, the helplessness, the quiet strength, and the hope that one small gesture could make life a little brighter. As they watched, the mother quietly spoke to her son. "Eat slowly, sweetheart," she said softly, trying to hide her worry. "We'll get through today like we always do." Her voice was calm, but Jack could sense the tension beneath it. He noticed the way her fingers fidgeted with a loose thread on her sleeve, the way she adjusted the tiny stack of coins she had left, and the way her eyes flickered toward the door every few seconds, perhaps hoping for a miracle or simply checking the world outside. Ethan turned to his father again, whispering, "Dad, why don't people help them?" Jack looked at his son, understanding his confusion. "Sometimes people are too busy, son. Sometimes they don't notice. And sometimes the help they offer is what's really needed. That's why paying attention matters. When you really see someone, you understand what could truly make a difference." Ethan thought about this, watching the mother and child. He noticed how her son's small hand occasionally brushed against the pizza slice, almost reluctantly, as if he didn't want to waste a single bite. He saw the mother smile faintly at him, proud of his effort to be patient and brave. The moment was small, but it was full of meaning, a quiet testament to their strength and love for each other. Jack observed closely, realizing that this was a teaching moment for his son. He wanted Ethan to understand the importance of empathy and the power of thoughtful action. He decided to let Ethan experience the situation fully, to feel the emotions, before any intervention. Jack knew that learning from real life was far more powerful than learning from instructions or stories. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the pizza shop remained calm. A few other customers chatted quietly, unaware of the small struggle in the corner. The mother kept a careful watch over her son, her eyes softening every time he smiled or laughed quietly at something in the comic book he had brought. Jack noticed the little things. How the mother tucked a strand of hair behind her ear nervously, how the boy tilted his head when he was thinking, and how both of them seemed to create a world for themselves amid the challenges outside. Ethan's curiosity grew stronger. "Dad, why do they look so tired all the time?" he asked softly. Jack sighed, not out of frustration but out of reflection. Life can be very hard sometimes, son. People face struggles we may never see. It's not always fair and it's not always easy. But even in those moments, there's courage, love, and hope. Ethan thought about that. He looked at the boy, who was now carefully stacking a few crumbs left on his plate. The child seemed proud of himself, as if he had done something important. Jack noticed Ethan's empathetic gaze, full of concern and a desire to act. Jack smiled inwardly. He knew that his son's heart was in the right place and that this moment would stay with him forever. The mother stood up briefly to refill her water glass, glancing at the boy with a reassuring smile. The boy's face lit up, and he held his comic book close, pretending not to notice her movement but clearly comforted by it. Jack observed the small exchange with admiration. The love and resilience between them were evident, a silent bond that neither money nor hardship could break. Jack decided it was time to teach Ethan something more, something practical. "Son," he said quietly, "sometimes helping someone isn't just about giving them what they need right away. It's about understanding, planning, and finding a way to make a real difference." Ethan looked puzzled. "But can't we just give them some of our pizza?" Jack chuckled softly. "We could, that would be nice, but I want to show you something bigger. A small gesture is good, but sometimes we can do something meaningful that changes the whole day or even the life of someone." Ethan's eyes widened with anticipation. He leaned forward slightly, eager to see what his father meant. Jack took a moment to glance again at the mother and child. They were still quietly enjoying the tiny slice of pizza, unaware of the attention they had drawn. Jack noted the careful way the mother encouraged her son to eat, how the child tried to savor each bite, and how, despite their struggle, there was love in every movement. The father and son duo continued to watch, learning silently. Ethan noticed the subtle expressions of hope, patience, and gratitude on the mother's face. He realized that even small acts of survival required bravery. The boy's gentle manners and understanding of his mother's worries impressed him deeply. Ethan began to grasp the concept of quiet heroism, not the kind that is celebrated or noticed by the world, but the kind that exists in everyday moments, often unseen. Jack leaned back slightly in his chair. He wanted Ethan to remember this feeling, the mix of empathy, observation, and the desire to help. "Son," he whispered, "remember this. Life is full of people who struggle quietly. Some have no one to notice them. That's why it's important to see, to understand, and to act wisely when you can." Ethan nodded, his young face serious. He understood that this was not just about pizza or money or hunger. It was about noticing, caring, and knowing that even a small action could carry enormous weight. He observed the mother's gentle touch as she helped her son eat, the boy's quiet patience, and the strength that existed in that tiny family. The minutes passed slowly, yet every moment felt significant. Jack thought about what he could do, how he could make a difference without embarrassing them or drawing unnecessary attention. He knew that his son would be watching every step, learning from his choices, and internalizing the lesson of empathy and generosity. As Jack's own pizza arrived, he took a bite but barely tasted it. His mind was focused on the mother and child, on their resilience and quiet dignity. He noticed how the little boy carefully tore off small pieces of pizza, trying not to waste any, and how the mother kept a watchful eye, ensuring he had enough without taking more than she could afford. Every detail seemed to reinforce the lesson Jack wanted Ethan to learn, that true compassion comes from noticing, understanding, and acting with care. Ethan, meanwhile, watched intently, occasionally glancing at the mother and child. He wanted to help, to share, to do something. Jack smiled at his son's eagerness. He knew that soon he would provide a real-life example of meaningful action. But for now, he let Ethan observe, think, and feel the emotions. By the time they finished their meal, the small mother and child duo had made a lasting impression. The mother had managed to provide her son with a moment of happiness, however brief. The boy had experienced a rare taste of joy and comfort, despite the challenges surrounding him. And Jack and Ethan had witnessed a profound example of resilience, love, and quiet bravery. Jack reached out to Ethan. "Are you ready to see how we can make a difference?" he asked softly. Ethan's eyes sparkled. "Yes, Dad, let's do it," Jack smiled. "Good, but remember, it's not just about giving. It's about helping in a way that really matters, and doing it without making anyone feel embarrassed or ashamed. Sometimes the best acts of kindness are quiet, thoughtful, and carefully planned." Ethan nodded seriously. He had learned more in this single afternoon than in many lessons at school. He had seen hardship, courage, and love, and he was about to witness the true power of compassion in action. Little did the mother and her child know, their ordinary day at a small pizza shop was about to change in ways they could never imagine. Jack, the billionaire biker, had made up his mind. He had seen enough to know exactly what to do. And Ethan, his son, would learn that real wealth was not about money, but about the ability to make someone's life brighter. Even in the smallest ways, Jack watched quietly as the mother and child enjoyed their small slice of pizza. He could see the care in every bite the boy took, and the effort the mother put into making sure her son felt safe and happy. Ethan, sitting beside his father, leaned forward with curiosity and excitement. He could tell that his dad was thinking about something important. "Dad, what are we going to do?" Ethan whispered. Jack smiled softly. "We're going to do something meaningful, son. Something that will help them today and maybe even remind them that kindness exists in the world." Ethan's eyes grew wide. He had never experienced anything like this before. Usually, his father's generosity was quiet and personal, but today, it felt like they were about to do something bigger. Jack took a deep breath and glanced around the small pizza shop. He didn't want to make the mother feel embarrassed or uncomfortable. This had to be done carefully, respectfully, and quietly. He walked to the cashier and quietly asked, "Can we order a few more pizzas?" "Some for the table over there." He pointed discreetly toward the mother and child. The cashier looked surprised but nodded. Jack handed over his credit card and said, "I want it to be a gift. Please give it to them without mentioning my name. Let them feel the surprise." As the pizzas were being prepared, Jack returned to his seat and Ethan whispered, "Wow, Dad, that's so cool. But is that enough?" Jack chuckled softly. "Sometimes the best way to help is to start. We can do more if we see it's needed. But first, let's make this a special moment for them." The mother was still focused on the boy, unaware of the plans unfolding. The boy had finished his small slice and was quietly looking at the pizza boxes on the counter, imagining what it would be like to have more. Jack could see the hope flicker in the mother's eyes as she noticed the cashier bringing out extra pizzas. Confusion crossed her face, and she looked around, unsure who they were for. The cashier handed the pizzas to the mother discreetly, explaining softly, "These are for you and your child. Someone wanted to surprise you." The mother's eyes widened in disbelief. She glanced at the boy, who was staring with wide eyes and a mixture of shock and excitement. Jack observed the small moment unfold and noticed the emotion sweeping across their faces. The mother's hands trembled slightly as she touched the boxes, unsure how to react. She felt a mixture of gratitude, embarrassment, and hope. The boy could hardly contain his excitement, smiling from ear to ear as he realized they would have enough to eat, not just for a single meal, but enough to enjoy freely without worry. Ethan leaned toward his father. "Dad, they look so happy." "Yes, son," Jack replied quietly. Moments like this matter. It's not just about the food. It's about letting someone feel cared for, about giving them a little hope in a world that can be hard. Jack noticed that the mother tried to compose herself. She wanted to say thank you, but she didn't know who to thank. Tears welled up in her eyes as she gently looked at her son, trying to hide her emotions so he wouldn't feel worried. But the boy, sensing the change, leaned closer to his mother and whispered, "Mom, it's okay. Look, we have more than enough." Jack smiled to himself. This was exactly the reaction he wanted, not just happiness but reassurance, love, and a reminder that the world could be kind. He reached out to Ethan and whispered, "See, son, real generosity doesn't need applause, it just needs to be felt." But Jack wasn't done yet. He knew that the mother had been struggling not just with food, but with bills and daily expenses. When the cashier mentioned that the woman sometimes fell behind on the shop's rent or payments, Jack made another decision. He approached the counter quietly and spoke to the cashier. "I'd like to take care of her balance for this month," he said. "No names, please, just let it be done." The cashier nodded, a little stunned, and quickly handled the transaction without letting the mother know. Jack returned to his seat and Ethan watched with wide eyes. "Dad, you're amazing. They have no idea," Jack chuckled softly. "Sometimes, son, it's better if they don't know. The goal is to help, not to make anyone feel uncomfortable." The most meaningful acts of kindness are often the ones done quietly. Meanwhile, the mother and child began enjoying the additional pizzas. The boy's laughter filled the small shop, echoing like a tiny celebration of relief and joy. The mother finally let herself smile openly, the tension of her worries melting just a little as she watched her son's happiness. She couldn't believe what was happening, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. Ethan watched carefully, noticing every reaction. He felt proud to be part of this, even though he had only observed. He was learning that helping someone didn't always mean doing something big for yourself. It meant doing something significant for someone else. Jack decided to take the lesson one step further. He leaned down and whispered to Ethan, "Let's teach him something else, son. Sometimes kindness is also encouragement. People need hope, not just food or money." He then wrote a small note and asked the cashier to hand it to the mother with a little card. On the note were simple words of encouragement. "You are stronger than you know. Keep going. Someone believes in you." The mother opened it slowly, her eyes widening. She looked at the boy, then back at the card, and finally wiped a tear from her cheek. The boy, curious, peeked at the note. "Mom, what does it say?" he asked softly. She smiled through her tears. "It says that someone believes in us," she replied, her voice trembling. The boy's eyes lit up. "Wow, really? Someone believes in us?" "Yes, sweetheart," she whispered. "And that's all we need sometimes." Jack and Ethan finished their own meal, quietly savoring the moment. They didn't want to interrupt or draw attention to themselves. They knew the impact of their actions was already making a difference, and that feeling was worth more than anything else. The mother, after finishing the pizzas, looked around the shop to see if she could find the person responsible. She noticed Jack and Ethan but didn't realize they were the ones behind the surprise. Jack smiled politely at her, giving only a gentle nod, and returned to his seat. Ethan mimicked his father, learning that true kindness didn't need recognition. As they prepared to leave, Jack approached the mother quietly. "Ma'am," he said softly, "I hope you and your son enjoyed today." The mother looked up, a little startled, and smiled politely. She didn't yet know the full truth. Jack continued, "Sometimes life can be hard, but moments like this remind us that there are good people in the world. Keep believing and keep moving forward." The mother felt a deep sense of gratitude, though she didn't fully understand how much had been done for her. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you so much," she whispered. The boy hugged his mother, feeling the warmth of the moment, and looked around at the pizzas with wide eyes. Ethan tugged gently at his father's sleeve. "Dad, I think this is the best thing we've ever done." Jack smiled, ruffling his son's hair. "Yes, son, but remember, it's not about us, it's about them. It's about showing that kindness exists, that there's hope, and that someone cares." As they walked out of the pizza shop, Jack looked back once more. He saw the mother and child sharing a moment of joy, laughing quietly and savoring the pizzas. He knew that the impact of this day would stay with them for a long time. Even small gestures, done with heart, could change lives. The ride back home was quiet but full of reflection. Ethan sat on the back of the bike, thinking about the mother and child, about hope, kindness, and the difference one person could make. Jack glanced at him and smiled. "Did you learn something today, son?" "Yes, Dad," Ethan replied seriously. "I learned that being rich isn't about money. It's about helping people, caring about them, and making their lives better." Jack nodded proudly. "Exactly, Ethan. That's the real wealth." And as they rode off into the horizon, the afternoon sun casting a golden glow over the countryside, both father and son carried a feeling of fulfillment. They had not only provided food and support, but they had also given hope, dignity, and a reminder of humanity's goodness. For the mother and child, it had been an ordinary day transformed into something extraordinary. And for Jack and Ethan, it had been a lesson in empathy, compassion, and the power of small, meaningful actions. The world outside continued as usual, but inside that little pizza shop, hearts had been touched, lives had been brightened, and a story of kindness had quietly unfolded, a story that would stay with all of them forever. The mother and her young son sat quietly at the small table, staring at the pizzas in disbelief. The smell of fresh cheese, tomato sauce, and baked dough filled the air around them, but their attention was on something much deeper than the food itself. For the first time in a long time, they felt a wave of relief, hope, and unexpected joy. The boy's eyes shone brightly as he realized they had enough to eat, and perhaps more importantly, he sensed that someone cared. The mother's hands trembled slightly as she carefully picked up a slice. She looked at her son and whispered, "Go ahead, eat. Today we don't have to worry so much." The boy, wide-eyed, took the slice eagerly and began to eat, savoring each bite as if it were a treasure. His mother watched him, a faint smile spreading across her face. Tears threatened to fall, but she held them back, wanting to enjoy the moment with her son. Meanwhile, outside the pizza shop, Jack and his son Ethan sat on the motorcycle, waiting quietly. They had finished their own meal earlier but had stayed a little longer to observe, making sure the mother and child had fully received the unexpected kindness. Ethan's eyes sparkled with curiosity and excitement. "Dad, they look so happy," he whispered, his voice full of awe. Jack nodded, a warm smile on his face. "Yes, son, happiness doesn't always come from big things. Sometimes it comes from small acts of kindness and understanding. Today we gave them something more than just food. We gave them hope, comfort, and the feeling that someone cares." Ethan looked thoughtful. "I never knew helping someone could make them feel so happy. And not just them, I feel good too." Jack ruffled his son's hair gently. "Exactly, Ethan. Helping others makes the world better, and it makes us better too. That feeling of giving, of seeing someone's life lighten up, is more valuable than any toy or gadget or even money you could ever have." Inside the shop, the mother and child were now laughing quietly together. The boy had finished his slice and was reaching for another, his small hands trembling with excitement. The mother encouraged him to enjoy it, and for a moment, all the worries of life seemed to disappear. Jack observed them with a mixture of pride and satisfaction. He knew that sometimes, even the simplest gestures could create lasting memories. As the mother packed a few slices into a small container for later, Jack and Ethan decided it was time to make one last move. Jack wanted the family to leave not just with full stomachs, but with encouragement and confidence to face the challenges ahead. He wrote a small note on a piece of paper and handed it to the cashier, asking her to deliver it to the mother discreetly. The note read, "Life can be hard, but you are strong. Keep going. You have someone who believes in you. Today is your reminder that hope exists." When the mother received the note, she looked at it, blinked several times, and then hugged her son tightly. "Look, sweetheart," she whispered, "someone believes in us." The boy's eyes widened and he hugged his mother back, feeling a warmth he had not felt in a long time. Ethan watched the scene carefully, his heart full of emotion. "Dad, they're going to remember this forever, right?" Jack smiled softly. "Yes, son. This is a moment that will stay with them, and it will stay with us too. Life is full of such moments, and sometimes we are lucky enough to be part of them." The mother tried to look around the shop, hoping to find the person responsible for the generous gesture, but she saw only the cashier and the other customers. Jack, noticing her glance, gave her a gentle nod and smile, not revealing his identity. He wanted the kindness to be the focus, not himself. After finishing their meal, the mother and child packed the remaining pizzas carefully into a small bag. The boy clutched the bag proudly, knowing that they would have enough for the next day as well. The mother felt a deep sense of relief and gratitude. She had been struggling silently, and for the first time in a long time she felt seen, supported, and reminded of the goodness in the world. Outside, Jack and Ethan prepared to leave. Ethan turned to his father, his eyes shining. "Dad, can we help people like this all the time?" Jack laughed softly. "We can try, son. We don't have to be billionaires to help others. Sometimes even small acts of kindness, a smile, a helping hand, sharing what you have can make a difference. Today we were lucky enough to do a little more, but anyone can help in their own way." Ethan nodded seriously. I want to help people." Jack smiled proudly. "I know you will, son. And when you do, remember this moment. Remember how it felt to see someone's life brighten, even in a small way. That feeling is more powerful than anything else." As they rode off on the motorcycle, leaving the small pizza shop behind, Jack glanced back once more. He could still see the mother and child sharing a quiet moment of joy and comfort. He knew that the impact of their day would last far beyond the afternoon. The small family had been given not just food, but hope, dignity, and a reminder that the world was capable of kindness. For Ethan, the ride back was filled with reflection. He thought about the mother and child, about hope, courage, and the power of giving without expecting anything in return. He realized that true wealth was not measured by money, cars, or houses, but by the ability to touch someone's life in a positive way. Jack, riding ahead, smiled at his son. He knew that this day had taught Ethan a lesson that could never be learned in a classroom or from a book. It was a lesson about empathy, compassion, and the ripple effect of kindness. One small act could inspire another, and in that way the world became a better place. Back in the pizza shop, the mother and child began to plan their day. The boy was cheerful and excited, and the mother felt a renewed strength to face the challenges ahead. She whispered softly to her son, "Today was a special day. Remember that always. There are people in this world who care, even when it feels like no one does." The boy nodded, hugging his mother tightly. Later, as they walked home with the remaining pizzas, the mother reflected on the kindness they had received. She felt a sense of calm and confidence she hadn't experienced in months. The boy, still clutching his bag, felt proud and happy, knowing that someone had gone out of their way to make their day better. The memory of that afternoon would stay with them forever. Meanwhile, Jack and Ethan rode through the countryside, the wind rushing past them and the sun beginning to set. Ethan looked thoughtful and asked, "Dad, do you think they'll ever know it was us?" Jack shook his head gently. "It doesn't matter, son. Sometimes the best acts of kindness are the ones done without recognition. The important thing is that they feel the support and hope. That's what matters most." Ethan nodded slowly, understanding the lesson. He realized that giving was not about fame or acknowledgement, but about making a real difference in someone's life. He felt proud to be part of the day, even if only as an observer, and he knew he would carry this lesson forever. As they rode further, Jack reflected on the entire experience. He had been wealthy for many years, but today reminded him that wealth was meaningless if it was not used to help others. The joy of seeing the mother and child happy, the boy's laughter, and the mother's quiet tears of gratitude were worth more than anything money could buy. Ethan, sensing his father's thoughts, leaned forward. "Dad, can we do this again?" Jack smiled. "Yes, son. Every chance we get, we can. Remember, it doesn't have to be big. Sometimes small gestures are more powerful than grand ones. Today was special because we saw a need, understood it, and acted thoughtfully. That's the essence of real kindness." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, father and son rode home in silence. Their hearts were full, their minds thoughtful, and their spirits lifted. They had not only helped a family in need, but had learned lessons about life, empathy, and the true meaning of giving. That evening, Ethan went to bed thinking about the mother and child, imagining their smiles and laughter. He felt a deep sense of satisfaction and purpose, knowing that their day had been brightened by their actions. Jack, too, reflected quietly, feeling content and grateful. He knew that moments like this were rare, precious, and worth cherishing. For the mother and child, the afternoon remained a cherished memory. They would remember the unexpected generosity, the surprise, and the kindness that had restored their hope. They would tell the story to themselves whenever life became difficult, reminding each other that there were good people in the world, and that even in challenging times, hope and kindness could be found. In the end, the small pizza shop had witnessed something extraordinary. A billionaire biker and his son, simply observing and then acting with thoughtfulness, had created a ripple of joy, hope, and love that would last far longer than the pizza itself. The experience had changed lives, teaching lessons that money could not buy and leaving memories that would be treasured forever. And as Jack and Ethan rode into the night, the father whispered to his son, "Remember, Ethan, the world is full of people who need kindness. Whenever you can, give it. That is how we truly make a difference." Ethan nodded, a small smile on his face. "I will, Dad, I promise." The wind blew gently around them as they continued their journey, carrying with them the knowledge that even small actions, done with heart, could change lives. And sometimes, the simplest acts of generosity could leave the deepest marks on the world.